Okay, so let's introduce our presenters for today. My name is Kobus Botha. I'm the Group Segment Manager for Optron. I hold a National Diploma in Surveying, and I joined Optron in 2009 as an application engineer. And I've been involved in deformation monitoring since 2010, and I've been specializing in the field since 2014. And joining me today is Ion Viljoen and Sharla Kutsia from Reutech Mining. Ion and Sharla, will you please introduce yourself?
Good everybody. Thanks, Kobus, for the introductions. And my name is Ion Viljoen. I'm, like you said, the Senior Regional Sales Manager here at Reutech. I've been here a little over 2 years now. Inshallah.
Hi everyone, I'm Sharla Kutsi. I'm the Group Technical Engineer for Reutech. I've been here almost 8 years now. Come from a strong consultancy background. I've worked on many open pits across the world and super excited to be here today talking to you about all of our equipment. So I think, Ion, we'll start with you.
Yeah, thanks, Sharla. Thanks, Ion. So if we look at the agenda for today, so Ion will give us introduction to Reutech Mining and also some industry challenges that's currently being faced. And he will also then outline the company's solution with a focus on slope stability monitoring and also the role of the Geotechnical Monitoring Center. And then following Ion, Sharla will then give us a couple of case studies that has been done using the equipment. And then once that's completed, we'll have some questions and general discussions at the end. Thank you. Ion, over to you.
All right. Thank you, Kobus. I just want to share my screen.
Okay.
There you go. Thank you. I first want to say thank you to Optron for setting this up, and obviously thanks to you guys for attending. I know it's late in the day, so we really appreciate you giving us that time today. So now to begin, let me just okay. So who are we? So Reutech is part of the company called Reunert, which is a JSE listed company. And Reunert was founded in 1988. So you can see we've been in the markets for a very, very long time. Reutech itself, or Reutech Mining itself, was the idea started in 2004, and we launched our first product in 2006. So where do we sit under the Reunert Group? So you'll see there's electrical engineering, applied electronics, and then information communication technologies. And Reutech Mining sits here under applied electronics, along with Reutech Communications Solutions, radar systems, which is our defense side, and then obviously Reutech Mining, Nanotech, and Omnigo. Okay, so what is our philosophy? Okay, so first off, we want to help the mines to be safer for the people, for productivity. We want them to have reliable equipment on the mine for safety, and also want to give them accurate data. So what is the industry challenges? So first off, ground movement. In my opinion, I think slope failure is one of the biggest risks in open pit mines, and even the smallest movement can end into catastrophic failure. Secondly, data complexity. You need to supply data that is reliable, accurate, and in real time. And then one of the more difficult ones is safety and productivity balance, to find a balance between those two very important facets. Okay. The solutions that we offer. Okay. So this is some of the topics that I will be discussing today. Firstly, there's slope stability monitoring, tailing and storing facility monitoring, geotechnical monitoring, natural hazards, and then also we have dynamic berm safety, underground mining safety, and archaeological solutions. The last three topics won't be part of this today, but you're welcome to reach out afterwards should you need to. Okay. Okay. So why does slope stability monitoring matters? Every open pit mine faces the same challenge, potential slope deformations. These deformations often start very small and is invisible to the naked eye. You won't even know it's there unless you have sophisticated equipment to detect this. Traditional monitoring tools cover limited areas, and it's not in real time. The result, mines are left exposed to safety risk, equipment loss, and costly production delays. So without reliable real-time slope monitoring, people, assets, and profit remain at risk. Yeah. So this is where we come in. The MSR measures slope movement down to sub-millimeter precision, with even the tiniest rock mass shift and movement patterns invisible to the eye can be detected before visible deformation appears. Because the system scans continuously 24/7, mines receive predictive warnings hours before potential failures, giving times to evacuate or adjust operational safety. Okay. So this is some of the products in our range. First off, we will see there on the left-hand side, this is what we call the MSR modular. This is a real aperture radar. Right next to it is the MSR Esprit, which is our MIMO, or multiple inputs, multiple outputs. Then we have the MSR Halo. This is a scientific aperture radar. Our slow vision camera, which can be used on any one of those free radars. And of course, our geotechnical monitoring center, which we'll also cover later on in this presentation. Okay. So in terms of software, for the Esprit and modular, we use what we call MSR Solo. It's a recently launched software, and we are in the process of rolling it out in the mines. It's something that we are very excited about. And then also MSR Halo software for Halo. This is a cloud-based. We will also be covering this later on. Yeah. So for the MSR modular, this is what the system looks like. So you'll see, why do we call it modular? First off, you will have your radar module there in front, your battery module there in the middle, and then your generator module here at the back. So this helps because a lot of times the mine do not need all three modules. If you have clean power on your mine, you may just use the radar module and the battery module. If you have clean and reliable power, then you don't even need the battery module or generator module. You can just use the radar module. Okay. So the deployment options. So the radar doesn't need to be deployed 100% level. It can be deployed non-level to within 15 degrees. We also have two types of trailer that we offer. Firstly, it's the standard trailer, which you just saw, and then the short trailer, which comes in if you only have one or two of the modules. We also have then the vehicle mount there on the right hand side, and then a fixed mount on your left hand side. Okay. So in terms of the scanning distance, our system is fully scalable in this regard. So as a standard, it comes with a 600-meter scan range. But if you, as the mine develops, or you opt to scan a little bit further, you can scale your license up to 1,200, 2,500, or 4,000 meters. Okay. So this radar can be used for critical and tactical monitoring. The MSR radar system is used for routine long-term monitoring, but can also provide critical short-term safety monitoring in unstable areas or near high-risk operations. Okay. So in regards to environmental, the system can operate in -30 degrees up to 55 degrees. You can also then fit a low temperature kit on it, and you can bring that temperatures down to -50 degrees. It can withstand rain of up to 100 millimeters per hour, winds up to 110 kilometers per hour, and relative humidity from 0 to 95%. Okay. Okay. So the system also does instantaneous atmospheric corrections through an algorithm. One of the benefits of this radar also is that you do not need to enter known stables into your systems. Even though it helps, you do not need to include it. Also, you don't need a DTM on the system as well. It can create its own DTM, and you will see an example of that later on. And it has an integrated onboard weather station. So here you can see a radar deployed in the extremes of both worlds. On the left-hand side, you have one covered in snow, and on your right-hand side, you will see a radar in desert conditions. Okay. In regards to the specifications, the MSR covers broad areas in only a few minutes, making it the fastest scanning radar system in terms of coverage and range. Radar data along with movement vectors from prism extensometers can be displayed on the same interface. The result is rapidly identifying changing slope conditions and making better informed decisions from anywhere in the world in real time. In the graph here at the bottom, you can see at an azimuth of 90 degrees and elevation of 30, you will have a scan time end to end of 45 seconds. This is also because it's a real aperture radar, it's able to scan in 3D data. With the highest three-dimensional data point spacing accuracy on the market, the MSR offers unrivaled quality and detail of movement. A cell-generated point cloud provides data in range, azimuth, and elevation without relying on external mechanisms. This means the MSR can also be used for the ad hoc monitoring or surveying of waste dumps and tailing dams. So you will see at on the right-hand top of the screen, you will see the operating range as well as the resolution. So on 1,000 meters, for instance, you have 0.5 meters in range, 4.4 meters in azimuth, and 0.44 in elevation. And this was the example I referred to earlier. So at the top, you will see this is the traditional DTM that's created. And at the bottom, this is an MSR generated point cloud, which was generated by the MSR. Okay. Okay. Then we also have an add-on feature that you can add to a radar. We call it auto georeferencing. So traditionally, they georeference a radar with a total station. This can be time consuming, and there is human error there involved as well. So we have the auto georeferencing. The MSR is equipped with the auto georeferencing kits. These kits allow the radar units to automatically georeference via GPS. This eliminates the need to manually georeference the system after it has been moved or redeployed. Here's just a short video illustrating this. Yeah. And here's an example of the data when the radar is georeferenced. You will see that the data is draped onto your DTM perfectly and aligned. Okay. Then secondly, another add-on feature that you can add to your radar is rapid align. So rapid align is used for continuation of your database. So let's say, for instance, you move your radar out of the pit during blasting, and tomorrow morning you bring it back. You don't have to create a new database. You can just align with your old scan region, and you will have a continuation of your database. So it helps not to have multiple databases, but one database for each scan region. And here you can see on your left-hand side of that graph was where the radar was deployed. Then there's a portion where the graph is flat. That was when the radar was removed out. And your right, you will see the continuation of that data there. Yeah. Then we have a camera that you can also fit to the radar. So this can be either on the radar itself, or you can mount it on a structure or a building. So slow vision is an evolutionary georeference high definition camera system tailored specifically to the geotechnical industry needs. The slow vision system enables users to command the camera to specific georeference coordinates or points of interest. What is also good to mention is that you don't need to stop the scan when you want to turn your camera, because it's not fitted on the antenna itself. You can operate the camera independently. Okay, so this is what I just said. Once the MSR detects instability, the slow vision can be tasked to investigate a specific point for any period of time without the operation of the radar. So here you can see in the speech illustration on your right hand side in the green is where your radar is busy scanning, and on your left hand side is where your camera is currently viewing. Okay. Just some features of the camera. The Slow Vision software has the ability to connect 4 cameras. Image and video formats are compatible with most third-party software. It's multilingual software, is available for iOS, Android, and Windows platform for ease of use. The Slow Vision can be programmed to record at predetermined dates or times. It has a auto defog setting, electronic image stabilization, vandal resistant bubble, up to 32 gigabytes edge storage with micro SD card, which is optional. And then OnVIF, Profile S, and Profile G conformance, free noise filtering, and a 130 decibel wide dynamic range. Okay. So the field of view is also 360 degrees in azimuth and 0 to 90 degrees in elevation. It's called operating temperatures from -51 degrees to up to 60 degrees. And I think this is what it's important there. And here's just another video of what I prepared. So moving on to the MSR Solo software. The MSR software has been designed to enhance safety and productivity in the mining operation, accessible on-site or in office, compatible across Windows, Linux, iOS, and Android. It supports multiple radars and simultaneous views, provided trend plots, data overlays, and DTM file auto adjustments, and instant notifications and alarm for fast response. It creates and monitors user-defined regions, multilingual interface for global usability. It has a custom dashboard tailored to individual needs, user-defined color palettes for clarity in visual data, and role-based logins for secure user-specific access. Here we have some screenshots of the software. So this is your landing page. So you can see just from the view on the landing page, you can get a lot of information from your radar. You can look at your fuel levels, the weather station status, the external power, if it's disabled or not disabled, your battery levels, state of charge. You can also see if your radar is currently scanning or not. So there's a lot of information you can get just from this page alone. Then we also have the free view of the pit with the scan regions. You can see the scan region there created in red. And obviously there on your right hand side, again, you have the color palette to show you the degree or the extent of the movements in your pits. Here you can also see that within your scan regions, you can have multiple alarms we will discuss the type of alarms you can set up on the next slide. And at the bottom, you can see the trend plots. This is the page where you set up your alarms, and where is that? Sorry. And here you can see you can set up a geotechnical alarm, a critical alarm, velocity and velocity delta, and relative range. Yeah. So this is just a nice picture to show. You can see the slope there covered in snow, and the bottom of the page is a high resolution true 3D dimensional MSR scientific map generated at 3,200 meters. So even through the snow, you can see that the movement was detected there. Okay. So this is what we call inverse velocity. We were also the first company to introduce this to the radar, and inverse velocity is used to determine at which point in time your slope will fail. So using all the information gathered by the radar, it does this algorithm calculating the point where the slope will fail. You can see there in the page at the top, the point of failure at 1233. So you will have that prediction as well. Again, just the different alarms, relative range, average velocity, velocity delta, and your correlation alarms. Okay. Then, sometime last year, we also launched the deployment tool. And this is a very, very helpful tool to use. So you import a DTM into this tool, and then you can plot your radar in your pit and determine which is the most optimal point where you can put your radar to get the data. As you will see, the areas in green is where you have good returns. There towards the blue and red, you get poorer returns. So you can really simulate your radar in your conditions to see where's the best place to position your radar to get the best results. Then the MSR Esprit. This is what we call the a MIMO, or multiple input radar. It's advanced MIMO technology. It's a fixed aperture, meaning that the antenna does not move. You can move it only once before the scan, and then it is fixed. So this is also I believe the fastest scanning radar in the field, and the benefit of multiple inputs and multiple input is you can send many signals out and receive many signals back, and it does a scan every 1.8 seconds. So why does that matter? If you can detect movement up to 7.5 millimeters every 1.8 seconds before it goes into phase wrap, where other technologies might go into phase wrap sooner than this. It also helps with to handle your atmospherics much better because of the fast scan time and the multiple inputs and outputs. So this is just the light. You will see there is your Wi-Fi with your solar panels, HMI laptop, your SSP enclosure, your generator enclosure, your APU pedestal, and trailer. So with the solar panel, your radar, your generator will run minimally. I believe only in the winters will this come into play. Again, like I said, it's a fixed scan envelope, and a nice way to describe it, it takes every 1.8 seconds, it takes a snapshot of your eyeball. Okay. And it has a 90-degree elevation and 60-degree azimuth. Sorry. Okay. So in terms of the operating range, it's capable range of 50 to 4,000 meters. Operating envelope, it's user selectable in 2,000 meters increments inside the capable range. So what that means is you can decide, or you can set which area is priority to set. So here you can see the selected area was the first 2,000 meters. This was 1,000 to 3,000 meters, and then 2,000 and 4,000 meters. So it will prioritize the data within, or will only scan the data in that range. And that is helpful to avoid nuisance alarms. Okay. Like I said, the distance, the resolution at a scan distance of 1,000 meters, you have a range of 0.5, azimuth of 2.76, and elevation of 1.47. It does come standard with external power that you can plug in. It has a battery module, a generator module, and then the solar panel as well. Okay. So, like I mentioned, it's the fastest scanning radar in the market. It does a scan every 1.8 seconds to complete each scan. However, it creates your scientific map every 2 minutes. Well, it's updated every 2 minutes. Okay. Then last year, we also launched a very exciting project. We call it MSR Halo. This is a scientific aperture radar. So like you can see, we have all three technologies here at Reutech. It has exceptional coverage, long range, and high resolution. It's also extremely mobile. As you can see, this one is fitted on a tripod. We will get into that later on. So the MSR Halo is a scientific aperture radar system offering 360-degree coverage up to 5 kilometers, delivering high-speed, high-resolution monitoring for detecting ground movement in tactical and strategic mining applications. It's encapsulating a full scan envelope at high speed over long ranges, tailored to acquire data in support of tactical and strategic monitoring campaigns. So there's a nice image again of the MSR Halo. So in what applications can you use this? You can use it in natural hazards, tailing storage facilities, as well as in your mining environment for slope stability. Like I said, the scientific aperture radar, it has a 360-degree azimuth and a 60-degree elevation coverage. It completes a full scan in 1 minute with near real-time updates. It has a scan range of 5 kilometers and a resolution of 0.3 in range, azimuth 5.1 at 1,000 meters, and it takes movement sub-millimeter. Okay. The operating temperature, it can withstand temperatures from -3 degrees to up to 55 degrees, 110 kilometers per hour wind. And with the communication, you can use Wi-Fi, 4G, 5G, and Starlink. And like I mentioned earlier, the software is completely cloud-based, so you don't need to set up a server on your mine to operate it. Yeah. So for deployment options, on your left-hand side, you will see it's trailer-based, like some of our other radars. In the middle, you have your portable on the tripod, and then a fixed installation on a pedestal. So in regards to the power supply, the power configuration are equally versatile with options for generator, battery, solar, or main supply. The portable PSU of external power, autonomous mobile power supply, generator, battery, solar, or external, and you have the option to add a wind turbine to that power supply as well. This power supply will be launched later in the year. Like I said, you don't need, it's completely cloud-based, so you do not need to set up a server on your mine. The MSR Halo software is a cloud-based web platform that ensures simple, reliable access to radar data from any location, view measurements, configure alarms, and monitor slow behavior in real time, access data from the site, control room, or remotely, and optimize for efficiency, even with limited connectivity. So it uses up very little of your bandwidth. Some of the software specifications, like I mentioned, you can access the radar from anywhere. Full 360 scan envelope. It's a fully georeferenced with DTM integration and export options, work in low bandwidth conditions, comprehensive adaptable coverage, real-time alarm and slow visualization, real-time data and alarm processing, and operating software. MSR Halo software is cloud-based. Sorry, okay. And this is a screenshot of the data. You can see the area that's grayed out there, which is your scan region. You can also then set your own colors there on the right-hand side. The current number of scale levels on this one is 6. And you can set custom colors to the degree of movements, whichever way you want. Okay. And then you can also plot a number of data points. You can see here, I believe there's 5 data points that you can individually select. Okay. Then at the end of, I think it was in end of 2004, We upgraded our geotechnical monitoring center. This is something also which we're very excited about. So on the mines, it's a very difficult circumstances because the control room operators are so full to look at other things on screens. They have pumps, they have water levels, there's fire suppression, there's vehicle tracking. So the control room operators are overwhelmed with data. So what we said is we take over that responsibility from the mine, and we do the monitoring for them to ensure that nothing is missed. So it's a 24/7 remote monitoring. We provide continuous geotechnical oversight globally. It's an expert geotechnical team. So our specialists deliver accurate data interpretation, rapid analysis, and timely response. So on the mine, if you have a control room operator monitoring your radars, he's not going to be an expert on the radars, where here you have the benefit of having somebody that is qualified to do this, looking at your eyeballs. Higher security standards, we implement advanced physical, cyber, and data protection to safeguard your privacy and operations. It's customized monitoring solutions, so 24/7 will obviously be first price, but we can do custom times. We can also do after hours. This is something that we can negotiate with the mine. We do real-time alerts, instant notifications to keep you informed, and optimized workflow. Okay. Like you said, we can do this at number one. You have full-time monitoring. Our team provides continuous 24/7, 365 days monitoring, allowing your geotechnical engineer to focus on critical on-site responsibilities. We can then also offer you after-hours monitoring, where we take over after the shift. We can do custom times. We also do hourly monitoring of the system on the radars to ensure that continuous assessment and detection of the system faults, enabling timely response and execution in line with the TAR procedure. There we have then two report options which you can do. We have a weekly reports. Reports are based on MSI health, slope movement, identification, slope movement identification, technical recommendations, and summaries are delivered every Wednesday. And then a comprehensive report on all radar and slope monitoring activities for your monthly reports. And this report is done and signed off by qualified geotechnical engineers. Okay. The access control to get in is actually very strict because you need to safeguard the mine's data and ensure that only the qualified people are in there looking at your data and working with your mine. So the GMC operates under strict access protocols. Key measurements include controlled access, alcohol testing, shift coverage, and you can even include criminal checks in that as well. So the staff qualifications, all geotechnical personnel meet stringent qualification criteria. And the GMC's IT environment is engineered for resilience, security, ensuring uninterrupted real-time monitoring services. Okay. So if we take over the monitoring from the mine, usually what happens, our geotechnical engineers go to the site and they will get a better feel of the site conditions. They will also agree on certain aspects in regards to the contract. For instance, your trigger accident response plans, notification protocols, standard operating procedures, data infrastructure security, and then we do parallel monitoring with the mine before we hand over, and then the execution afterwards, after the parallel monitoring, where we take over fully. Yeah. Then also part of the geotechnical monitoring center, so they have a system or software called Sysmon, is where we can log into the radar and look at the radar health. The benefits of this is to provide real-time system health visibility monitoring directly from the Reutech control center. It reduces downtime by enabling proactive maintenance and rapid response to issues, and enhances safety and reliability by ensuring radar systems remain fully operational when they are needed most. So this is useful so that you can be proactive with your radar or not reactive only after you have downtime. Okay, and that is that for me. Thank you very much, guys.
Thanks, Joop. Charla, over to you. Just keep an eye on the clock. We've got about 25 minutes left. We just need to keep some time in
Okay.
the pocket for questions at the end. Thanks.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm going to get started with my presentation. Just two things. I'm actually presenting off of a separate screen, so I'm going to switch my camera off. And the other thing I noticed when Ian was presenting was that his camera got frozen. So I'm just going to switch mine off for the session, and then I'll put it back on at the end. So I'm just going to share my screen quickly. There we go. Okay. So what we're going to be talking about basically in our first section is looking at a comparative visual data assessment for our MSR Modular and our MSR Esprit. And as Ian already alluded to the fact that our modular system is a real aperture radar and our Esprit system is a multiple input, multiple output radar. So these systems were placed at an operation. They were placed side by side, and the whole purpose was to monitor that area, which you can see the slope in question, for a period of time. And the data that I'm going to be showing you is for a period of 14 days. And what's quite interesting is that I've screenshotted the data or captured the data on a 24-hour basis. So what you kind of see is information pertaining to the displacement for that 24-hour period for each system. And what we did was set the relative range for both of the systems on 20 millimeters. So before I get started with the first picture, this is day one. What I want you to think about or consider when I'm going through these images is that we know that the modular, the real aperture radar, it has a very good range and resolution, as does the Esprit. But what you're going to see in these images is that there's definitely a huge benefit of having a 2 or 1.8 second scan time. Yes, it's updated every 2 minutes, but all of those scans are amalgamated. The interferometric phase is recalculated, and then the synthetic map is updated every 2 minutes. So you have a number of scans for those 2 minutes. Whereas with the modular system, it just has one scan every 2 minutes, and then it doesn't update. So what we end up seeing is for the Esprit, which is on the right, and the modular is on the left, is that we'll see for the Esprit that it's kind of more crystal clear. There's a lot more clarity. It's a lot more defined. And one of the things that Esprit is very, very good with is managing to monitor through very poor atmospheric conditions, and also if there's brittle failures or highly complex instabilities, and especially if there's inhomogeneous movement across the area of concern. So this is what these day-to-day images kind of look like. So this is day one, and then we have day two. So what we can see here is there's some side casting, and there's a lot of movement on the spill material in this area. The next day is very similar. The next day is much, much quieter. We do see a little bit of movement accumulating on the spill material here, and then activity on the production floor. The same for the next day. The next day is also very much the same. The same for the next day as well. And what we see here on day 8 is actually a little bit of side casting and accumulation on the spill material. A quieter day for day 9. Day 10 is quite limited activity in the pit. There is some movement on the spill material. More concentrated on day 11. The same for day 12. Same for day 13. And then day 14, we see that it's a lot more concentrated in those areas. So I'm going to just zip all the way back and then zip all the way forward again, just so you've got a feel of it a bit faster. Is this begins to tell you a story of production, the movements on the slope, how the spill material is behaving, if there's any side casting going on, and so on. So just a really nice example of monitoring through those kind of conditions. So the next section is quite similar. It's looking at observations of side casting between a pushback and the floor of the slope. And what I've had to do for this specific example, which is a video, is I've taken the DTM off to protect the confidentiality of the client. This is actually a ramp over here. And what you're going to see through the video is there's a progression along this area, which is the pushback area for that specific pushback here. And then the floor of the pits over there. And what we'll see is side casting activities. And as blasting continues down through this area, we'll see that there's spill material from the blast and accumulation of material in this area. And the reason this is so topical or so important is to remember that if obviously there's spill material accumulating on this portion of the slope, but there's production crews on the floor, we need to know where that spill material is, what it is affecting. And typically what you would do is set up reference areas, areas to look at with trend plots. You would look at the synthetic map, and then you would ascertain once the synthetic map has gone quiet. When I say quiet, I mean there's no accumulation of movement. That means that the area is stable once again, and the production crews can go into that specific area. Whereas if there's definite spill material and movement or displacement accumulation, you would want to stand off distance basically at the bottom of the slope. So here's the video. And yes, it is playing. So this would be the next day. So you can see there was side casting in this area. So we wouldn't want the production team under there. There would be a standoff distance imposed over this portion of the lower part of the slope. This was a quiet day. You can see a lot of activity on the pushback, but no side casting. Side casting on this day with a lot of activity on the pushback again. A very busy day, a lot of side casting and spill material there. A quieter day, but still, this probably would have been no side casting. This probably would have just been natural movement on that blast spill material. The same for this signature. This would have been some side casting, and then you can actually see the accumulation on the actual individual benches. And then the final day, which was a very busy day, they side casted on various portions of the pit slope. So in this case, no, we're not looking at an active instability per se, but we're utilizing the radar for managing where the production teams are working and making sure that there are effective barricaded areas and standoff distances. So the next slide is a little bit about our Geotechnical Monitoring Center and its observations of a bench scale instability. So what happened here was we have a specific client in North America, and the GMC was monitoring a system, and there was a lot of localized slabbing and rock fall on that portion of the slope, which was typically bench scale or less than bench scale. And what the Geotechnical Monitoring Center staff do, as Ian also alluded to, is we set up a specific monitoring protocol with the clients tied in with their trigger action response plans, and then therefore the alarms that they utilize based on their data, their specific geotechnical requirements, their operational requirements, and so on. And what had actually happened is that just before midnight, which is local site time, the staff were evaluating the synthetic map, and they found that there was a concentration of movement. But the interesting thing was it was below that of the alarm level selected by the client. So the client was actually told about this observation prior to the alarm going off. So this is when it gets very, very interesting. So what we did is they had an area threshold, which is a number of pixels or points combination, which forms the basis of the alarm threshold criteria. And we knew that there was this area. So this is a bit of a back analysis, but based on the true data that was gathered from this specific situation. And we set up a 2x2, I think it was, a 4x4, and a 6x6 type area. And their specific area threshold was actually a 2x20. And what we can see here is that on the 5th of March at about midnight, so midnight their time. But in South Africa, we're in the future compared to North America, right? So it was about 6 o'clock in the morning for us. We saw that there was this sudden accumulation of movement in this area. And we looked at the trend plots and we could see it wasn't actually going to cross the alarm threshold line. The movement was not significant or big enough to actually set off the alarm, but we could still track and see that something was going on there. That's when the client was informed. And we continued to monitor the specific area. We set up a protocol to monitor it specifically. And what you can see is over a period, I think it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I think it was about 2 weeks we monitored the specific instability. On the 8th of March at about midday, that was when the principal collapse actually occurred. And what's interesting is we can see clearly, based on the different sizes of the area thresholds, what would have actually crossed the alarm threshold line in these instances. So what I wanted to show you with the next slide is this is a 1 hour time window, this is a 2 hour time window, and this is a 4 hour time window for the exact same data. And what we can see in this case is that a 1 hour time window is highly sensitized, and that's a good thing for the specific, much smaller, it's smaller than a bench scale type instability. So it would have given very good warning of the actual collapse or continued raveling on that structure. However, if we move to a 2 hour, you can see it's not as sensitive as what the 1 hour would be. And then in this case, this is 4 hours, which means it wouldn't have even met the alarm conditions. And this is important that we look at these kind of things to ascertain what kind of alarms would you want to apply to a very specific situation, a set of geotechnical conditions, what's going to be meaningful in the sense that the alarms are activated at the correct time and provide pre-warning for the staff, and then obviously the protocols that they need to then adhere to, or in this case, when would have alarm actually not been activated at all. So there was a lot to learn from this situation, but I was very proud of the geotechnical center monitoring staff that they picked up this movement, like I said, before the alarm actually needed to go off. We knew about this before the situation actually arose and became more serious. So moving on to our new piece of equipment, which I'm super excited about, our synthetic aperture radar. This is multiple pit slope instabilities, and basically what we did here, you can see the deployment position over there. It's a 360-degree scanning system. So it's I can't tell you the location or the commodity, but basically what we found for scanning for a specific period of time, I screenshotted and time windowed this into 24 hours, is that we noticed that there were 3 main areas of concern. So this is area 1, which you can see here, area 2, and area 3. And what I just wanted to mention, which is quite interesting, is the range between this deployment position, for example, to this area of concern is 600 meters, but all the way to the other side of the pit is about 2,260 meters. So it's quite a distance that this system is actually able to manage to cover. So what happened from here is we have polygon areas. We define the areas, so I call them areas 1, 2, and 3. And then I have more defined areas called from 1 to 5. The areas, or what I call areas, show like the larger portion of the instability, and then the more defined areas show the more concentrated portions of movement. And then there's masked areas over there and over there that were not relevant to the study. So this is what the displacement looks like for the first area and the area threshold, the average velocity, excuse me. And this is what the trend plots look like. So you can see that there's a continuous accumulation of movement on the displacement, and the average velocity is a bit jumpy, so it's not a continuous rate, but still illustrating to us this linear type of displacement accumulation. This was the second area, and you can really see the actual hotspots of movement. And what's interesting with these areas is this is a an active instability. This instability had already failed. So you're monitoring the backscarp, which is of great importance, and the failure mass as well, and little areas on the crest, which were problematic, which could cause additional raveling. Once again, a very linear type trend plot for all of these identified areas. And then the third over here, this was also a backfilled portion of the slope, which we were monitoring. And there was displacement on that part of the map pile that actually backfilled this portion of the slope. So we were keeping an eye on this area as well. Not completely linear. We wouldn't expect that for that kind of material, but we monitored it nonetheless. Now, what is interesting with these three cases is I utilized the displacement and the average velocity, and I looked at the different scales required for each one of these scenarios. And from there, what I was able to do is set up trends, alarms, and configuration levels of 4 different levels with instructions per alarm level of what needed to be carried out if that trigger was actually activated. And then based on that, instead of having a displacement displacement synthetic map, what we're able to then do is change the synthetic map to illustrate what the different levels are. So it would be green for level 1, and then yellow for 2, orange for 3, and then 4 for red. So it gives you a kind of instant, really good idea and understanding of the slope from a trigger action response plan type view of different portions of the slope and what are the most hazardous areas or the areas that one needs to keep an eye on. And then just to conclude, was a very useful situation to monitor these different types of scenarios for one slope, and it gave a very good baseline of that anticipated displacement and that associated speed, which then allowed us to set up this alert level rating and that synthetic map, which I previously showed you. And I think the thing that I really that I'm most excited about is the fact that it's a 360-degree scan envelope. So you have this wonderful situation where a modular would probably not be able to manage anything like this, and Esprit would definitely not. They have their own advantages as their own systems, as I've previously explained, but this synthetic aperture radar really brings home the fact that you can monitor a very wide range and scale of movement. So yes, that's the end of my slide. I hope I didn't talk for too long, Cobus. I kept you 7 whole minutes for questions.
Thank you very much, Shara. That was really insightful. At this stage, I am just going to open the floor for some questions. There were some questions in the chat. One of them.
Sorry, go on, Cobus. I'm just trying to open the chat. It's on a different screen.
Okay. Yeah. So we've already answered all the questions in the chat, but all the participants, you're welcome to raise your hand and ask a question yourself. But one of the questions was with the Halo. Since the Halo, we don't need software on the server, where is the scanning data stored? And that is obviously on a secure cloud server. Moses, yes, you have a question.
Yes. So I've got 2 questions. The first one is the generated point cloud image. Can it be exported? Then the second question is what's the maximum range that the rapid align is used in?
Cobus, do you want to take those questions, or do you want me to take them?
You can take it. You can take it.
Okay, so Moses, you asked about the point cloud. That's a really good question. It can be exported as a CSV file, so it has the information as XYZ per point. And the other really cool thing that you can actually do is export the point cloud as a DTM. So it's a colored DTM of the synthetic map. And then with Rapid Align, it works for all distances. So it's irrespective of distance. It reassigns that point, the XYZ coordinate closest to the new deployment point, and then amalgamates that data and then continues with the synthetic map and the trend plots. Does that answer your question or questions?
Yes, it does. Thank you so much.
Perfect. I think there's another question here, but I can't see your full name on the tiny little tab.
It's Kwelasa, Augustine.
Yes. Yes. Okay. I got one question. So we are currently using Global Mapper plus SAPAC plus Trimble Business Center. So is there a way that we can export the point clouds into maybe, let's say, XYZ format or LAS, something like that, so that can be integrated to other software as well? Because in SAPAC you can transform the point clouds to DTM. Is it possible?
Yes, you can do that. Many operations do. They use third-party software to make that transition. I personally haven't really used it because I haven't had the need to, but it can be done. If you want a bit more detail on that, let me go and find out specifically, and then I can get back to you on it.
Okay, that's a good one. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks for that.
But I've seen it many, many times. Like, for example, putting the point cloud into Gem4D, or there's many different options for utilizing the point cloud outside of the HMI environment.
Thanks, Shala. Anybody else? I don't see any more questions in the chat. Okay, so at this stage, I just want to thank everybody. I want to especially thank Ion and Shala for joining us today and giving such insightful presentations. Please keep an eye out on our social media pages for the next upcoming Optron Geospatial Technologies webinar, which will be probably in the second week of March. Thank you very much, everybody. Goodbye.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining.
Thanks, everybody.
Enjoy your day.
Thank you, everybody. Enjoy your day. Bye.